As Takahiro eagerly prepares for a private moment of self-indulgence with his preferred magazine, he relishes the freedom he now has in his own world after saving Sandia from the Demon King Zagan. His companions in the other world always kept him busy, and there was hardly any opportunity for personal leisure. His pent-up desires had reached a breaking point during the latter part of his journey, where he couldn't help but constantly think about self-pleasure. It hasn't been long since he returned to his world from Sandia, and everything that transpired in the other realm occurred during his university's summer break, so he hasn't missed much. He is particularly eager to catch up on his favorite pastime. With a sigh of contentment, he reclines in his comfortable chair, the anticipation of a peaceful evening of relaxation painting a smile on his face. As he reaches for his cherished magazine, the one with well-worn pages and stories that have provided solace during many long nights, the warmth of familiarity envelops him. However, just as he's about to engage in this personal moment with his tissue box, a sudden and unexpected intrusion occurs. A girl, her presence unforeseen and startling, crashes through his window with a cacophonous shatter. The fragments of glass scatter across the room, and Takahiro's carefully planned alone time is abruptly, and rather dramatically, disrupted. The shock on his face is undeniable, as he finds himself staring wide-eyed at the uninvited guest, his magazine now forgotten in the midst of the unexpected chaos. As Lilia slowly picks herself up from her less-than-graceful landing, Takahiro is immediately on alert. He recognizes that she's speaking in the language of Sandia, the world he had just returned from. He quickly realizes that Lilia is a demon, and although he's lost his weapon from his time as a hero, he attempts to intimidate her by threatening her. However, Lilia's response takes him completely off guard. Blushing, she mumbles about how gallant and good-looking he is, exactly what she expected from a hero. Her admiration takes an unexpected turn as she jumps into his arms and whispers, "I like you," directly into his ear. Startled and still wary, Takahiro demands to know who she is. Lilia, now flustered herself, finally introduces herself as Lilia, the Demon King's daughter. She goes on to deny any intent of seeking revenge and insists that she's not here to harm him. She has something to ask of the strong hero, and her purpose is quite different from what he initially suspected. However, Takahiro is clearly preoccupied with something else at the moment, his thoughts racing between the abrupt intrusion and his interrupted personal moment. His expression is a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Sensing that she needs to regain his attention and address the matter at hand, Lilia clears her throat, prompting Takahiro to refocus on their unexpected encounter and the intriguing proposition she's about to make. Lilia astutely observes that Takahiro is fixated on her, specifically her well-endowed assets. She believes this makes him more likely to listen to her and agree to her request. Drawing upon her knowledge of Japanese, she proceeds to kowtow before the bewildered boy. In her native language, she pleads with him to impregnate her. Takahiro is taken aback by the sudden change in her tone and words, especially given the context. He quickly pulls her up and inquires about her intentions, concerned about how he might be perceived if someone were to witness this unusual scene. The look on Lilia's face, however, confirms that her true meaning has been accurately conveyed. Lilia proceeds to request a hug, but as Takahiro attempts to oblige, he trips and falls, landing squarely on top of her. Capitalizing on the opportunity, Lilia directly asks if he can do her now, leaving Takahiro utterly flustered. Her softness and sweet fragrance add to his disorientation. As Takahiro navigates this bizarre turn of events, he finds himself pondering how he transitioned from preparing for some solo quality time to being asked by the Demon King's daughter to father her child. Takahiro couldn't shake the feeling that, despite being the hero who saved another world, he wasn't particularly popular. There was a time he entertained the notion that, as a reward for his heroics, he might finally be able to break free from his state of chastity. However, as Lilia's bold words stirred his emotions, his thoughts became even more chaotic. In the midst of this whirlwind, Lilia abruptly points out that their clothes are in the way, sending Takahiro's mind into a tailspin. Overwhelmed by the situation, he finds the courage to ask her why she desires a child with him. The demon princess responds by expressing her belief that a child born of both their lineages would be truly extraordinary. A sudden realization strikes Takahiro as he contemplates the implications of their actions. He begins to wonder if Lilia is planning to rebuild the Demon King's army. Upon his defeat, the Demon King had issued a dire warning, explaining that even if Takahiro were to defeat him, the darkness would inevitably resurface in the form of a successor, one who would inherit his dark legacy. Fueled by this understanding, Takahiro abruptly distances himself from Lilia, wrestling with the dire consequences of his actions. He fears that, should he give in to Lilia's request, it could spell the end of the world itself, bringing forth the most ominous and dreadful calamity of all. As the gravity of the situation becomes clear to him, Lilia hugs him closely. Her bare chest presses against him, leaving him flustered and melting under her touch as she inquires if he's feeling nervous. Lilia suggests that having her chest exposed is quite embarrassing, and she playfully encourages Takahiro to hold her in his arms. This sends Takahiro into another bout of panic, and in his anxiety, he accidentally bites his tongue while attempting to explain why he can't proceed with her request. Lilia, misinterpreting his reaction, thinks he's trying to harm himself because he desperately doesn't want to be intimate with her. In a rush, Takahiro corrects her and emphasizes that he absolutely wants to engage in that act. In fact, if she moves even slightly right now, his rocket ship might launch. However, he urgently explains that giving in to his desires could put both the other world and his own world in grave danger. Yet, Lilia appears to be more focused on the fact that she recorded what the hero said when he defeated her father, the Demon King, and has watched that scene countless times. Takahiro finds himself teetering on the brink of surrender in various ways, but remains determined not to give in. He desperately tries to control his thoughts, making a solemn promise to himself that he will never allow Lilia to become pregnant. Simultaneously, the demon princess is resolute in her determination to give birth to the hero's child. Takahiro is savoring his summer break, thoroughly enjoying his relaxation until, once again, Lilia makes a dramatic entrance through his window. This is the second time she has broken into his room, so Takahiro questions why she keeps doing so. However, his inquiry only earns him a rather irritated response from Lilia, who suggests that he should install windows made of softer glass. Takahiro then asks her why she's here this time, and Lilia straightforwardly informs him that she's returned for the purpose of procreation. He pays little attention to her, continuing his video game, but Lilia is persistent in her efforts to capture his attention. However, she becomes easily distracted when she spots the TV in his room, which fascinates her with its moving images of people on the other side of an incredibly thin wall. She mistakenly attributes this to Takahiro's skill, believing he is the one controlling it. Clearly, this is a result of the significant culture shock between their two worlds. Just then, Takahiro's pizza delivery arrives, and the food becomes a new source of fascination for Lilia. As he starts eating a slice, Takahiro explains that he wants to spend the day doing all the things he couldn't do while he was in Sandia, savoring every moment of his return. Takahiro offers Lilia a slice of pizza, and she's predictably captivated by its delicious appearance. She accepts the slice, savoring its flavor, and then inquires if she can watch Takahiro play this game he's been talking about. Takahiro consents, but he gradually becomes uncomfortable due to Lilia's intense gaze as he plays. He suggests she read manga instead, and to his surprise, she agrees, beginning to read quietly while enjoying another slice of pizza. Takahiro finds himself contemplating that the Demon King's daughter is genuinely beautiful when she's not talking. As Lilia indulges in both pizza and manga, she proceeds to praise Takahiro once more. However, her next announcement takes him by surprise. She declares that her stomach is full and that she's now ready for some intimate activity. She elaborates by saying that after satisfying one's hunger, the next logical step is to address one's hormonal appetite to sleep soundly. This bewilders Takahiro, and he exclaims in disbelief at how she's presenting these three pleasures as if she's offering a bundle deal. To clarify, Takahiro desires to be intimate with Lilia, but he is well aware that engaging in such an act would lead to the end of the world. Faced with this moral dilemma, Lilia suggests a solution. They should engage in a 3-game contest, with the loser agreeing to do whatever the winner asks. Lilia is confident that she'll emerge victorious and get her way. The first game they play is an arm wrestling match, a contest of pure strength. Despite Lilia's bold talk, she finds herself struggling and on the verge of losing. Takahiro, feeling a touch of sympathy, initially attempts to wrap it up quickly but becomes distracted by Lilia's appearance. This almost gives Lilia an opening, but Takahiro regains his focus and ultimately defeats her. Lilia tries to save face by making excuses for her apparent weakness. Takahiro then selects the next game, opting for the classic game of rock, paper, scissors, which is a test of luck rather than skill. In this simple game, Lilia once again ends up as the loser. Frustrated by her losses, she throws a tantrum, repeatedly expressing her desire to move on to more intimate matters. But Takahiro intervenes. 30 minutes pass, and Lilia's incessant whining finally subsides, likely due to her hoarse voice. Takahiro offers her some water and suggests that she should leave, but she clings to his arm and proposes a third game, a drinking contest. She argues that since the first 2 games are now invalid, they should have a new one. Takahiro reluctantly agrees and heads out to buy some alcohol. As he goes to fetch the drinks, Lilia snickers, believing that she's successfully manipulated Takahiro with her choice of game. She has an exceptionally high tolerance for alcohol, and she's confident that Takahiro will become inebriated long before she does. Her intentions are clear. She hopes that his inebriation will lead to the desired outcome. However, as the alcohol consumption begins, it becomes apparent that Lilia can still hold her own even after 10 cans of beer. She pairs her drink with squid tentacles as the two continue their conversation. Lilia mentions that one of the 4 heavenly kings has a message for Takahiro. This message questions whether Takahiro can proudly wear the injury he inflicted on this demon warrior as a lifelong medal. Takahiro is taken aback by this revelation, as he was unaware of the high regard he held in the demon world. As their drinking competition evolves into a more casual drinking get-together at Takahiro's home, Lilia has donned one of his white shirts after soiling her own clothes. Her appearance, slightly flushed from the alcohol, adds an enticing quality to her presence, and it's starting to distract Takahiro from his original plan to reserve some personal time for self-indulgence later in the day. Despite her spirited drinking, she asks if there's any more alcohol, much to Takahiro's annoyance. He's just a working student in this world and can't afford an excessive bar tab, not to mention the cost of fixing the 2 broken windows she caused when crashing into his room. Lilia apologizes and offers to pay for them next time, but before she can finish her sentence, she suddenly falls asleep. With a sense of relief, Takahiro carefully moves the sleeping demon to a futon, avoiding any lingering glances that might weaken his resolve. Lilia's vulnerable state is highly tempting, and just as he's about to give in to temptation, she murmurs in her sleep that she likes him. Takahiro, determined to resist temptation, delivers a self-inflicted punch to pull himself out of his daze. He reminds himself that, as a man, he can't take advantage of a girl while she's sleeping. Later, as night falls, Lilia finally awakens. She's still feeling the effects of her hangover, but seeing Takahiro tied up startles her into sobriety. Curious about human behavior, Lilia ponders if this is something people do when they sleep. However, her less innocent thoughts soon take over. She sees this as the perfect opportunity to get what she wants. As she approaches Takahiro, Her lingering hangover symptoms intensify, leading her to rush to the sink to vomit. Takahiro, observing her distress, advises her to take it easy and rest. When she finally recovers, Lilia is mortified to realize that he's awake, having seen her vomiting. She continues to repeat her purpose there with a straight face, though she's inwardly embarrassed that the hero witnessed her in such a vulnerable state. Nevertheless, Takahiro seems unfazed by the incident. As another scorching day unfolds, Takahiro returns home from the convenience store. Immediately, he switches on the air conditioner, seeking relief from the heat that has left him sweating. Engrossed in the cool air, he's taken by surprise when Lilia inquires about the remote control for the AC. Without realizing who's asking, he casually explains how the AC works. Lilia, however, becomes excited and expresses her desire to introduce such cultural advancements to Sandia. Initially, Takahiro agrees, only to later realize that Lilia is back in his house, something he hadn't even noticed. He questions her presence, and she points to the newly broken window as the reason. It's the third window she has shattered, leaving Takahiro extremely frustrated. Lilia shyly confesses that she crashes through the window because she's not adept at landing properly when she flies. She offers to let him hug her as compensation. Takahiro reacts with anger, scolding her for breaking the windows, and Lilia innocently asks if he's mad. In response, he sternly tells her to be quiet and forbids her from discussing her desire to become pregnant. Lilia expresses her appreciation for his kindness in not kicking her out. In her characteristic lack of understanding, she asks if he would be happy if she told him, "I like you," under normal circumstances. Takahiro scolds her, and she finally apologizes. She stays quietly in one corner of his room while he immerses himself in his game. As he thinks about how peaceful it would be if she were always this quiet, he suddenly realizes she's eating his pudding. He erupts in anger and startles the demon, causing her to drop her snack. Now, there's pudding in the magazine he was planning to read later. Lilia offers to clean the spot on the magazine and return the so-called pudding. However, Takahiro loses his patience. He's frustrated that she didn't ask for permission to eat his pudding or read his magazine. In response, the demon becomes equally upset. After all, she's the daughter of the Demon King. Takahiro emphasizes that she's in Japan and specifically in his house, and finally, he throws her out. Takahiro, after sealing the newly broken window, starts to ponder if he was too harsh with Lilia. He rationalizes his anger and grievances, but a nagging feeling of regret remains. He feels that he should have engaged in a more constructive conversation with her instead of abruptly expelling her from his home. To dispel his unease, he decides to go in search of her. Using his recollection of the peculiar feeling he experienced in the presence of the demon race, he tracks her down. Takahiro eventually locates her near a bridge, where he discovers a makeshift cardboard shelter. He's amazed that he can sense her presence there and watches as she casually dressed in a jogging outfit. Lilia uses her magical abilities to start a small fire, and Takahiro is struck by the unusual nature of the scene. He conceals himself nearby, listening as Lilia engages in a self-reflective monologue. She contemplates her unintentional conflict with the hero, expressing uncertainty about whether she should apologize during their next encounter. Takahiro is touched by Lilia's inner thoughts, but her inner demon quickly resurfaces, retracting her previous words. She claims that he overreacted and crossed the line, so she won't apologize unless he does so first. Takahiro starts to walk away, thinking that the matter doesn't concern him. However, he hears the approach of some shady individuals heading towards Lilia. He returns to check the situation and overhears Lilia conversing with the men in a foreign language. When he hears one of the men behaving inappropriately, he decides to intervene. Lilia tells the man that she'll kill him, prompting Takahiro to take action. He suggests that they pretend to be a couple to escape the situation, asking Lilia to address him by his name. Before they can get away, the men stop them. Lilia suggests eliminating the men, but Takahiro reminds her that they are not in Sandia, and such actions could have consequences. Frustrated by the men's harassment, one of them charges to punch Takahiro. He underestimates the man's speed and believes he can withstand the punch. However, he quickly realizes his mistake as the punch lands with surprising force. Takahiro quickly realizes that without his protective equipment from Sandia, he's just an ordinary person in his world, making him susceptible to physical harm. After confirming that he's all right, Lilia threatens the men, calling them lowly humans and warning them of the consequences of injuring Takahiro. However, he stops her from using her magic and accidentally pulls her pants down, much to her embarrassment. Flustered, Lilia misinterprets Takahiro's actions, thinking he intends to have an intimate moment in the midst of danger. He apologizes and asks if she's about to use a dangerous, cool technique. Lilia clarifies that she was going to use her ultimate lethal technique, chameleon Fogel, not anything romantic. As they converse, one of the men yells at them to stop flirting and trying to ignore the situation. He attempts to throw another punch, but Takahiro's reflexes are still as sharp as they were in Sandia. He quickly dispatches the man with a powerful punch, sending him flying. The other man grabs a cooking pot and hurls it at Takahiro, but he easily deflects it, causing the pot to bore a hole in the concrete behind the assailant. Terrified and awed by Takahiro's power, the remaining man falls on his bottom. Takahiro warns them to leave and never return to this place, emphasizing that he won't be responsible for what might happen if they do return. The men quickly retreat, and Lilia can't help but gush over the hero's coolness. Despite her admiration, Takahiro feels down for having to use his powers against fellow human beings. He thought they were meant to save the world, not harm others. Lilia blushes at his concern and points out that he prioritized helping her over the physical integrity of some humans. Takahiro makes it clear that he won't forgive her if she tries to harm others again. He then apologizes for getting angry at her earlier, explaining that he didn't mean to react that way. Lilia isn't quick to accept his apology, saying that she was hurt. She then makes a request, asking him to call her by her name. Takahiro is hesitant about this, but Lilia insists that he can't refuse. Meanwhile, in her makeshift cardboard house, someone calls Lilia's name, possibly hinting at an unexpected visitor or event. Lilia is happily singing to herself as she gets dressed when she's suddenly called to attention. Her advisor, Ideanor, enters her cardboard house, inquiring about how the Demon King's daughter is doing. She asks if this place is Lilia's hideout and suggests that she should set up a barrier to keep humans away. Ideanor then inquires if Lilia has already met the hero, and the demon girl enthusiastically confirms that the hero is just as cool and attractive as she had imagined. The advisor reminds Lilia not to forget her original purpose, and the demon reassures her that she doesn't need any reminders. In unison, they affirm that Lilia's ultimate goal is to get pregnant with the hero's child, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Takahiro sneezes at home, wondering if he has caught a cold. It might be due to the drafts of cold air entering his room through the broken windows, thanks to Lilia's antics. However, it's also possible that he sneezes because, somewhere far away, the demons are talking about him. As Takahiro contemplates taking a moment for himself, he recalls that he hasn't had a proper moment to relax and tend to his needs since the last time he had an accidental discharge. So, with no interruptions in sight, he decides to seize the opportunity and prepares to, well, take care of himself. However, just as he's about to unzip his pants, Lilia comes crashing through the last unbroken window, tumbling into his room once again. Takahiro cries out in frustration as he now has all 4 of his windows broken, and he can't even spare a moment for some private time. Lilia, with her legs open from the messy landing, asks what he thinks of her looking like that. Takahiro, perplexed, asks if she's referring to her clothes or her pose. Lilia explains that she heard these things called bloomers, or gym shorts, are very popular in this country. Takahiro questions where she heard that from, given that bloomers have long gone out of style. Lilia asks if it's because they're too lewd, but Takahiro isn't quite sure how to respond. Suddenly, Ideanor enters the room. She remarks that the lewd clothing fits the situation perfectly and suggests that for the purpose of Takahiro impregnating Lilia, hormones are a must after all. Takahiro, growing increasingly frustrated, asks who Ideanor is, questioning the etiquette of wearing shoes inside the house. Lilia introduces her as her advisor, and Ideanor offers a greeting. In a case of déjà vu, she also knows and earnestly implores Takahiro to father a child with Lilia. Ideanor explains that she had read some books on proper Japanese etiquette for pleading. Takahiro is taken aback, realizing that these books must have been quite biased, considering the circumstances, and he jokingly asks if Lilia also got the idea of wearing bloomers from those books. Lilia confirms that it was indeed her advisor's suggestion. Takahiro then openly voices his suspicion, asking Ideanor if Lilia's intention is to have his child to help rebuild the Demon King's army. To his surprise, Ideanor doesn't try to deny it. Lilia attempts to defend herself, insisting that she genuinely wants to bear Takahiro's child, but Ideanor interjects and explains their true reason. After Takahiro defeated their king, the demon world was left without a ruler, leading to conflicts in various regions. As a result, the matter of the successor among the Demon King's sons has become an urgent and pressing issue. The conversation takes an intense turn as Ideanor openly admits that they need Takahiro's seed to produce an heir who can rule the demon world. She essentially implores him to take responsibility for the turmoil he caused. Frustrated, Takahiro can't understand why he should bear any responsibility for the Demon King's army. After all, they were the ones wreaking havoc in the other world, which is why he had to stop them. Ideanor calmly argues that he's viewing this situation from the perspective of a human. Their conflicting views escalate into a heated debate, which is disrupted when Lilia intervenes by jumping between them with a cry. She grabs Takahiro and fervently demands to have a baby with him, simplifying the complicated conversation by expressing her desire to bear a cute baby with the hero. Lilia asks if he really doesn't want to be intimate with her, and Takahiro finds it challenging to answer. Ideanor clarifies that Lilia's personal feelings are mixed in her words, but it doesn't matter as long as they do it. She even suggests that he can use Lilia. The demon responds with a whine, arguing that she's the one who will be intimate with the hero, prompting Ideanor to explain that she will merely provide support in the process. Takahiro's head is spinning as he grapples with the bizarre turn of events. His Excalibur, a symbolic representation of his arousal, awakens, and the girls are fascinated by the situation. Lilia eagerly anticipates the hero's readiness, while Ideanor offers to assist, but Lilia insists that they get to the business at hand. Overwhelmed, Takahiro decides to escape the situation by running to the bathroom. Outside the bathroom door, the girls knock, but Takahiro faces a dilemma. He worries that his first experience will be distorted if he's intimate with both girls. However, he also realizes that the commotion will continue, and he needs to find a solution to calm his heightened state. While trying to deal with his predicament, Takahiro recalls what he had planned to do before Lilia's unexpected arrival. He focuses on trying to resolve his issue, and Lilia, teasingly, threatens to break down the door if he doesn't come out. To her surprise, she discovers that the door is actually open, and when she peeks inside, she finds Takahiro looking downhearted while sitting on the toilet. Lilia calls out to Takahiro while Ideanor mentions that they've set up a futon. However, Takahiro, with an unsettling expression, tells them to leave. The girls immediately understand his warning gaze, realizing that the hero who defeated the Demon King is in a foul mood. The formidable pressure emanating from him, combined with the eerie expression on his face, gives them chills. It's as if he exudes the aura of the mighty Kraken, the king of the seas. Sensing his irritation, Eleanor quickly retreats, pulling Lilia with her, and they hear Takahiro mumble that they should leave. As they head back to their cardboard house, Lilia grumbles that she couldn't achieve her goal, blaming Ideanor for it. The advisor, however, suggests that it might be because Lilia lacks appeal. They consider that the Bloomer's cosplay attempt might not have worked, and Ideanor proposes trying a bunny girl outfit next. Takiria's head is spinning with all the mixed emotions when he sees Lilia in yet another suggestive costume, this time a bunny girl outfit. He knows this is Ideanor's doing, and he hands a towel to the sweaty demon, who suggests he use his chilly wind magic. It becomes evident that Lilia has been using a variety of alluring outfits to win him over, which she playfully calls her beauty trap. Lilia bends over to pick a manga to read, and before things can escalate, Takahiro offers her some hydrating juice. In the process, she spills some on her chest, and she asks him to help her clean it up. Takahiro obliges, and as she reads her manga in different seductive positions on his futon, she suddenly senses the aura of the Kraken. As Takahiro desperately tries to fend off Lilia's advances, someone suddenly intervenes, urging him to calm down and handing him a glass of juice. Frustrated and in need of a moment's respite, Takahiro quickly downs the drink and thanks the mysterious person for it. However, it becomes clear that the juice was spiked with a magical potion. Ideanor, the mastermind behind this plot, casually informs Takahiro that it's pointless to resist. The magic in the juice takes effect rapidly. It will induce an intense thirst and sudden perspiration, followed by an abnormal state of excitement, causing his body temperature to rise. Ultimately, his mind will become clouded, leaving him fixated on one thing and one thing only. Takahiro is in the grip of the magical potion, which has left him in a frenzied state, consumed by his primal instincts. Lilia is initially excited, thinking this will finally allow her to do it with Takahiro, but her enthusiasm quickly wanes when she sees the hero's bizarre behavior. Takahiro's erratic movements unnerve Lilia, as he appears to be uncontrollably wobbling and thrusting in the air. She desperately cries out to Ideanor, expressing her reluctance to conceive under these circumstances. However, Takahiro makes a leaping attempt toward her, resembling a hungry predator. In response, Lilia uses her wind magic to push him away, sending him crashing into the wall. But Takahiro's nature as a hero prevails, and he quickly recovers from the impact, leaping back towards Lilia. The demon girl, panicking, darts away, leaving Takahiro to collide with Ideanor instead. The advisor calmly points out that she is not Lilia, teasing that she might have a chance as a concubine. However, when Takahiro starts to lap at Eleanor's thigh, she retaliates by forcefully pressing his head against the floor with her foot. With her foot still on his head, Ideanor remarks that the little doggy can't play pranks like that on people, prompting Lilia to worry that Ideanor may have gone too far. Takahiro regains his senses after being hit hard, and he's not in the mood to put up with Lilia and Eleanor's antics any longer. In a fit of frustration, he snaps at both of them. It seems that the impact of Ideanor's retaliation has helped him break free from the effects of the magical potion. Amidst the mounting tension, Lilia gallantly steps between Takahiro and her brother, Abyss, as a steadfast guardian of the man who has unwittingly become the pivot of this familial conflict. Her unwavering determination to shield the hero from the impending threat showcases her indomitable spirit, displaying the depths of her devotion to a man she has come to care for despite their unconventional circumstances. The confrontation, now transcending the boundaries of mere physical combat, evolves into a high-stakes family drama where the throne of the demon world hangs in precarious balance, its destiny swayed by a complex interplay of loyalties and desires. Takahiro, caught in the crossfire of interdimensional discord and royal intrigue, finds himself immersed in a whirlwind of chaos and confrontation, questioning the twists of fate that have thrust him into this extraordinary situation. During this moment of respite, Ideanor swiftly administers her concoction to Abyss, temporarily paralyzing him. Takahiro takes this opportunity to express his gratitude to Lilia for her intervention. Her unwavering support in this chaotic situation is a glimmer of solace in the turmoil of his extraordinary journey. Despite the odds and the bizarre nature of their relationship, Lilia remains steadfast in her commitment to their alliance. However, Takahiro can't help but worry about the well-being of his Excalibur, fearing that the confrontation may have left his formidable weapon damaged. In response, Lilia assures him that all will be well and that she'll patiently await his recovery, promising that they'll embark on their unusual mission when the time is right. Would Takahiro be able to control his deepest desires? Would Lilia be able to have a baby with him? Find out in the next video, and if you liked our content, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.